Mary Frith, the Queen of London's Underworld. Thief, hustler, performer, legend. The crowd stops laughing first. That is usually how it begins. Not with fear, not with admiration, with laughter. Because the woman striding through the streets of London looks like she is breaking every rule on purpose. A man's hat, a man's cloak, a swagger that belongs more to a highwayman than a lady. And worst of all, she doesn't seem remotely ashamed. In fact, she looks like she's having fun. Her name is Mary Frith, though most of London knows her by another name, Moll Cutpurse, a nickname that sounds dangerous, and is, because in a city filled with thieves, con artists, smugglers and rogues, Moll becomes something almost unheard of, a female criminal celebrity. You feel it immediately when stepping into London around the turn of the 17th century. This is not the polished capital tourists imagine. This is a city of mud, smoke, crowded alleyways, the smell of sewage mixing with roasting meat. The wealthy ride through streets filled with beggars, and survival often depends on how quickly you can spot danger, or create it. Mary learns early that she does not fit the mold expected of women, not even slightly. The world tells girls to be quiet. Moll answers by becoming louder. The world tells girls to be obedient. Moll answers by doing whatever she pleases. The world tells girls to dress like women. Moll starts wearing men's clothing. That alone is enough to scandalize London. You can almost hear the gossip spreading through taverns and marketplaces. Who is she? Why does she dress that way? Why isn't anyone stopping her? Because in early modern England, clothing is more than fashion. It signals status, identity, power. By wearing men's clothing, Moll is not merely breaking a style rule. She is challenging the social order itself. And London notices, very quickly. The nickname Cutpurse follows soon after. A cutpurse is a pickpocket, someone who literally cuts purses from belts and disappears into the crowd. Whether Moll personally committed every theft attributed to her remains uncertain. History and legend become tangled around her almost immediately. That tends to happen when someone becomes larger than life. But one thing is clear: she thrives in London's underworld. You can picture the scene: crowded taverns, gaming houses, street performers, criminal networks operating just beyond the reach of the law. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Moll Frith. Laughing, negotiating, surviving. The remarkable thing is not that she enters this world. The remarkable thing is that she dominates it. Most women of the period struggle to gain independence. Moll creates it. She earns money, makes connections, builds influence, and does it while openly ignoring society's expectations. The authorities hate that. You can almost feel their frustration, because Moll refuses to behave properly. Worse, she seems to enjoy refusing. Every arrest, every accusation, every scandal only makes her more famous. Soon she becomes one of the best-known women in England. Not a queen, not an actress, not a noblewoman, a criminal, or perhaps something even more dangerous, a woman who refuses to accept limits. The playwrights notice, writers notice, the public notices. Before long, stories about Moll begin appearing on stage. Imagine that. You're still alive, and people are already turning you into a character. The real woman and the legend begin merging together, each year making it harder to tell where one ends and the other begins. And Moll doesn't seem interested in correcting anyone. Why would she? The bigger the legend grows, the safer she becomes. Because now she is more than a thief, more than a troublemaker. She is becoming something entirely new. A celebrity outlaw, a woman whose reputation travels faster than she does. And soon, that reputation will carry her directly into a collision with London's courts, churches, and moral guardians. Because England can tolerate criminals, what it struggles to tolerate is a woman who refuses to know her place. Right as Moll Cutpurse becomes the most infamous woman in London, because next, Mary Frith turns scandal into fame and transforms herself into one of the most unforgettable rebels in English history.
The authorities cannot decide what to do with her. That becomes the problem, not catching Mary Frith, understanding her, because every time they think they've finally cornered Moll, she slips sideways, like smoke, like a joke everyone is in on except the people in charge. You can almost feel the frustration spreading through London's officials. A thief can be arrested, a criminal can be punished, a scandal can be buried. But Moll turns punishment into publicity, and publicity into profit. That makes her dangerous. Soon her reputation grows so large that playwrights begin writing about her, not years after her death, while she's still walking London's streets. Think about that. Most people spend their lives hoping not to be remembered. Moll becomes famous enough to become entertainment. Crowds flock to see performances inspired by her exploits. The public loves it. The authorities hate it. And Moll sees an opportunity. Of course she does, because she understands something centuries before social media influencers figure it out. Attention is a form of power. The more people talk about you, the harder you are to erase. Then she does something so outrageous that London nearly chokes on its own outrage. She appears on stage herself, not disguised, not hiding, openly, confidently, a real-life criminal celebrity performing before a paying audience. You can almost hear the gasps. Women aren't supposed to behave this way. Criminals aren't supposed to behave this way. Nobody is supposed to behave this way. Yet, there stands Moll, smoking a pipe, wearing men's clothing, mocking society's rules while society pays to watch. It is one of the most Moll Frith moments imaginable. The church is horrified, naturally. Religious leaders see her as a symbol of moral collapse. Everything about her challenges the order they are trying to maintain. She drinks, gambles, swears, wears men's clothes, keeps questionable company, and worst of all, she seems completely unrepentant. The authorities eventually haul her before church courts. You can picture the scene, officials expecting shame, expecting apology, expecting submission, and getting Moll instead. The records describe public penance, a formal humiliation, the kind designed to break someone's spirit. Yet somehow even this fails, because humiliation only works if the person being humiliated cares what you think. Moll rarely does. That is her superpower, not strength, not wealth, not noble birth, freedom from embarrassment, the ability to walk into a room full of critics and continue being herself. Most people spend their lives fearing judgment. Moll treats judgment like background noise. That makes her nearly impossible to control. As the years pass, her legend grows. Stories multiply. Some true, some wildly exaggerated, some completely invented. Soon nobody knows exactly where reality ends and myth begins. Was she really a master thief? A fence dealing in stolen goods? A criminal mastermind? A talented businesswoman? A performer? A con artist? Perhaps all of them. You realize something fascinating about Moll. She keeps changing roles. Every time society tries to define her, she becomes something else. Respectable women don't enter the criminal world. Moll does. Criminals don't become celebrities. Moll does. Women don't wear men's clothing in public. Moll does. Women don't build personal brands in the 1600s. Moll somehow does that too. And perhaps that explains why historians still talk about her. Because she doesn't fit neatly into any category. She isn't a queen. She isn't a warrior. She isn't a saint. She isn't even entirely a villain. She exists in that fascinating grey area where rebellion becomes identity, where survival becomes performance, where refusing society's expectations becomes a full-time occupation. By the time she grows older, Moll has achieved something almost impossible. She has outlived the scandal. Think about how remarkable that is. Most notorious figures burn brightly and disappear. Moll remains. The outraged sermons fade. The court cases fade. The gossip fades. And somehow she is still there, still talking, still performing, still refusing to become what anyone expected. When death finally comes in 1659, London loses more than a criminal. It loses a legend, a woman who spent her entire life treating rules as suggestions, a woman who transformed notoriety into influence, a woman who understood that the most powerful thing you can be is unforgettable. And centuries later, she remains exactly that, not because she was the most successful thief, not because she was the most dangerous criminal, but because she refused to live the life her society assigned her. Everywhere she went, she left the same message behind. You do not have to accept the role written for you, even if everyone around you insists that you should. So we leave Moll here, walking confidently through a muddy London street, pipe smoke drifting behind her, the crowd staring, the authorities fuming, and Moll Frith smiling because she knows something they don't. The rules only work if you agree to play by them. If this story stayed with you, if you enjoyed the chaos, audacity, and sheer nerve of London's most famous outlaw, don't stop here. There are more women like Moll, women who didn't ask permission, women who ignored expectations, women who turned scandal into legend. Stay dangerous, stay loud, and never let them hold the pen.